Welcome, Perennial Pride listeners. Welcome to today's podcast. So, at the time of recording this podcast, there's a lot in the news. One major thing was a submarine that was going to go visit the Titanic, nearly 4 miles down in the ocean, which to me is crazy, to go exploring, and they lost connection, and a tragedy occurred where people died, and they found a debris and the appears, the submarine imploded, and it's just a crazy story. It's awful. 5 people lost their lives, and it was just, it's heartbreaking to see something like that happen, hear about it happening. I'm just so saddened for their families. And, you watch enough news these days, anything can happen, right? There's so many weird things that occur, and we never can predict them. And it feels just like, every day you hear about something crazy. And, it sort of struck me because there's a lot of things in our lives where we know things can happen, right? Whether somebody gets into a bad car accident and loses their life, or someone receives a bad diagnosis of cancer and unfortunately becomes terminally ill. I mean, you hear about these things, and there might be people close to you you've come across, but you never ever think about it happening to yourself. It's like it didn't feel like it's real. And the reality is that all of that stuff is real. And certainly we can't predict everything. No one would have predicted COVID, although there are some that knew it could happen again, right? And again, this is really about trying to plan ahead and think about some worst case scenarios and preparing. And it reminds me of a quote I saw related to Seneca, who was a ancient sort of Stoic philosopher, and he hated the excuse. He says, "I didn't think that could happen," and he just said it was a lazy sort of mentality that things that you knew could happen, you do nothing about, and you had a chance to before they happen, and or you roll the dice. And then, unfortunately, I think as it relates to a lot of things in our lives, I think a lot of people are rolling the dice and hoping it just doesn't land on them. And they could be anything, right? There's a lot of topics and areas that could impact our lives in a whole host of ways, whether it be death, disabilities, sickness, job losses, divorces, you name it, lawsuits, our investments going down, tremendous value, whatever. There's probably too many to name. But the reality is there's a lot of things that could happen, and it's just a matter of whether you're preparing or thinking about them to try to ward off any of those things happening, or just knowing that you're prepared and the outcomes that kind of ensue from it are what you would hope, given that situation. And quoting Ben Franklin, who I always try to when I can, he says, "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail." And I unfortunately often see that as I'm looking at folks' financial lives, that they're just one hiccup away from a financial disaster. And it's something that for people that I come across, I try to preach that if they want to own their futures, it's time to start preparing and thinking about things that could happen that could greatly impact the welfare of your family and the people you care about and the things you care about. And you have to spend some time there. And those topics are not great, right? Sometimes thinking about our future date when we're going to die, which we don't know in that day is going to happen. What would you want to happen for your family, whether it's today, tomorrow, or 50 years from now? And we don't know. So it's really takes some effort to face those difficult topics head on and, get things in place to a level where you feel good about them. So, for this episode, I really, as it relates to our, kind of futures and certainly our financial futures, so to get ahead of this and know that you're prepared as best you can for what comes, got 3 kind of basic sort of steps and areas to consider. One being, this is not the sexier part of our finances, but protections, right? I'm a big believer in, having the maximum protection in all areas of our lives, whether it be our assets, things we own. And we normally think of our homes, our cars, things that we own, our real estate, and having those fully protected. No one would want to, have a fire in their home and then only get half the value of that home. So having adequate protections of our assets, certainly our income, which is our biggest producing, for most people who have jobs, that's their cash flow, that income that comes in. Could you survive with half or a fraction of it? Most people probably couldn't. Obviously, we talk about premature death, protecting against our death, which is an absolute certainty. We just don't know when. And protecting that heavily, which is our biggest asset, us, and our ability to produce and provide for our families. If we're not around, like what will happen? Our health, for sure, like medical insurance, and even getting things like estate plans in place, right? So that we can more efficiently transfer wealth over to our heirs and ensure that our children have guardians that we feel are adequately trained or able to take care of our kids. All those things need some planning and thought before they happen, not after. Because if it happens after, then the courts are making some decisions on that, and we likely don't want that to happen. And lastly, as it relates to preparing for and the protection side of our wealth, is just saving money in a safe spot that provides us, obviously certainty that we can pull money in and not have to go into bad debt, and have liquidity available that we can access it. And obviously on the safe side, it helps us deal with some bumps in the road that we may encounter, whether having repair in a car, or someone gets sick and has to be out for a while. But what we preach too is having more liquidity so that you can take advantage of opportunities that come our way. And sometimes, in some of the worst of times, there are opportunities that pop up that a lot of people can't take advantage of. But those who are prepared and have the adequate liquidity can really benefit heavily from that. And that may be coming in the time of this recording, with impending recessions and potentially more job losses, et cetera. So hard to know. But, having additional liquidity could be hugely beneficial and allow you to even build tremendous wealth. So the second step in this is to take into account how you're spending your time. Our days and hours that we have, which we don't know, again, we don't know when we're going to leave this earth, is our scarcest resource. We don't know. We can't easily just buy it back. I mean, investments, you can maybe build some more money if you take a loss, but as we're losing days and hours or time, or a lifetime, you can't really buy those back, right? They're going to keep on being spent regardless of what we're doing. And we all have the same amount of hours in a day. So knowing that at some point we will leave, it really, for me, I think about it more often than probably most, and it pushes me to take the most out of it, make the most of every single day, and treat people in the way I feel best with, certainly my family and others, and try to get a grounding on what life is and all the great things in life. So it's really something to consider, because you know how it is. Every time I meet somebody, they say, "Oh my God, it's been X number of years. Everything's flown by. Our kids are getting so old, and it's gone in a blink of an eye," and it can be. And that's why I think it's you need to be purposeful to understand how you're spending your days, to enjoy them, have time for yourself, and ensure that you're spending it with the types of people and doing the things that you want to do. And that goes into, having a little bit more focus on purpose of life. Like, what is it that you're doing in your job, business, or volunteer, whatever it is that you feel is a service to others, and leveraging your unique gifts and talents and passions, and trying to shape your life around that. I think most people think of a job and it's not a very positive thought, but what if you can do something that you feel like you're making a difference and you're doing something you enjoy, and leveraging what, the powers that be design you to do. And that hopefully will keep you engaged and ensure, however long you're on this earth, that you feel like is fulfilling. On a more finance side of things is looking into ways to build additional cash flows into your life, whether it be through passive sources, through real estate, private lending, whatever. There's a host of different ways. Dividend stocks, like something that bring more passive income to potentially free up more of your time, so you're not always working, right? And that sometimes this will take some time. It took me a little time to do this, but it's definitely doable. And getting a passive income stream that is equatable to at least your basic expenses can free you up to maybe focus on some more of those things that you want to do for yourself, for your family, and for your communities. And so the last step in this, I think, is really centered around it's important to think long term. I believe that. But we have to act short term, right? We have to take some action. You can think about and envision things, but until you start actually doing something, you're never kind of moving the ball at all. It's kind of you're standing still. You can think about these things. Now, I'm a perpetual overthinker. I like to analyze things, think through it, think through the pros and cons. And historically, it stopped me from kind of moving forward. And I've grown to be better at that and say, hey, what's the sort of minimum amount of information I need to do something? And I've gotten certainly much more courageous and mindful of that, because I know without doing anything, you're not really progressing anywhere. We can think about it, we can read about things and learn. But the reality is you have to take action to move things forward, learn from them, and continue to grow and advance whatever it is in our lives, certainly financially, whether it's moving into a new career, or exploring a new type of investment sort of space like real estate. Like, how do I get into it? It can be a daunting task, and then people don't do anything. So I really encourage you to think, what is it you're trying to certainly bring to your life, right? That's number one. There's got to be a reason why you do these things. And it doesn't have to be, the most profound reason. You may just want it, right, for yourself for some reason, right? Gives you some satisfaction. Nothing wrong with that. But ask yourself, what is the next move I can do? What's one step I can do? I don't have to have the whole entire roadmap printed out and followed before I get going, but like, what are some things to get me moving in the right direction? Because I think what I've seen, certainly for myself personally, and in different areas of my business career and certainly my finances and investments, that every time I start moving it forward, there's new challenges that come about for sure, but there are bigger challenges and bigger and better things, and things get progressively better over time. Just like we talk about compound interest, right? It takes some time and movement. It grows maybe slower. It's not, you don't see it as much, but then, when you look back and like, oh my God, look how far I've come. But it all starts somewhere, in taking leaps of faith and taking action. And I'm a big believer in that now. And then you can adapt and evolve it. And we're going to make mistakes and be okay with that. I used to think that I couldn't make a mistake. I had to be perfect. Well, I recognize that's not realistic. And we just got to keep moving forward and realize that it's part of the journey, that we're going to learn and grow and keep a positive mindset of change and everything like that. And things will hopefully work out. Right. So those are just some of the steps I would encourage you to think about. I think most people want freedom and control of their lives and want to know that the future for themselves or families are secure, regardless of what happens in this world and to ourselves, our health, or whatever the situation. We can't predict everything. So it does require us to plan, get ahead of it, think about things, and then take some action. And that'll be the way that you can start owning even more of your future, ensuring you get to live the life that you want. And that's really what this is all about. So I appreciate you listening in, and certainly I'd love any feedback anyone has on these podcasts, that are helpful or not, and share what else you might want to learn about. I'm always anxious to provide value to those listening to this podcast, and hopefully give them a boost and improvement to grow and advance whatever they're trying to achieve in their lives. So thanks again, and then we'll see you on the next podcast.
Thanks for joining me on this episode today. I really am grateful for you as listeners to the Perennial Pride podcast. I hope you're getting some tremendous value out of it, and hopefully pushing you along your journey to financial freedom. I put this podcast together really to help you get more educated around your finances, so that you feel empowered to live the life that you really want. And if you like the content that you heard today or watched, then I would encourage you to go to my website, perennialpride.com. There's tons of other content there. And you can access my book, Wealth Beyond the Numbers. You can buy it there on my website. It's a aggregation of a lot of great tips and tools I've learned to not only build my wealth in my accounts, but build wealth in my life and abundance and joy, and something that has a lot of my experiences in the journey that I've been on personally. Hopefully that can be also of value to you as you sort of move forward. So thanks again for being a Perennial Pride listener, and we'll see you on the next episode.